Hey everyone, just before we get to this episode, do you want to start, grow, or monetize your podcast but feel stuck or overwhelmed? Join the Podcast Lab, a monthly membership with live training, templates, support, and a community to help you launch and grow with confidence. Get clarity, stay consistent, and finally build the podcast you've been dreaming of. Join the Podcast Lab today and take your next bold step. The link is in the description to join. Now, let's get into this episode.
What advice do you have for people who may have maybe had a little idea of starting a podcast, but then talk themselves out of it?
Chris, that's an amazing question and Chris, like I said, it's all about the impact. It's all about the energy. It's all about the authentic connection. So ladies and gentlemen, it's going to take time to feel a little bit comfortable with the uncomfortable of talking to a camera. I'm going to give you a little secret. When you look at time management, and I also coach this too, but I'll give you a nugget today because I like you guys. What you could do is...
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are speaking with a global certified speaker, a coach, an author, someone who encourages you to follow your heart and not the herd nor the hurt. She is a Les Brown alum and she is here because she is hungry. And we are speaking to none other than Andrea Mason. And if my intro didn't fire you up for this episode, then keep listening because Andrea will fire you up. She is going to speak about her journey, her podcast, and give you some encouragement because it's not over until you win. So let's get to this conversation right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of I Made a Podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Andrea Mason. Andrea, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you doing? Hello, everyone.
Oh, this is great. I am doing so good. I'm so glad that you decided to, come on the podcast and share your journey of podcasting with me and with everybody else that is listening right now. And I know this is going to be a blast. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and I'm just feeling the energy. It's feeling good. So I know that this is going to be a wonderful conversation. So maybe if you want, you can introduce yourself, let everybody know a little bit about you and a little bit about your podcast. You can let us know what it's called and just give us a little insight about it.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Andrea Mason. Your first choice, your global voice, alumna of Les Brown and the creator and innovator of Press Play and podcast host of Unleashing the Champion Within. And I'm so honored to be here as a coach, as a speaker, as an author, as a trainer. It's just so exciting to meet new individuals. And as Chris mentioned, have that exhilarating energy that matches yours just to have fun, make impact, and enjoy life. Thank you so much for having me.
I love that. You mentioned one of my key words, make impact. With podcasting, that is the one word that I love to just make sure I emphasize when I'm talking to anybody about podcasting. Your voice can make an impact in this world, and you can do it through podcasting. So thank you for you mentioned the bonus prize words. So you know.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So listen, your podcast is called Unleashing the Champion Within. Yeah. Can you give us a little insight of how you came up with the name for that podcast and like if there was anything else behind it, why you decided to settle on that name?
Sure. So as I was growing up, I was a victim of abuse and bullying. See, I came from Colombia, South America during the cartel, and I was adopted and came to America at the angelic numbers, weighing in at 11 pounds at 11 months old into an unconditional loving family.
Wow.
And I was a treasure to my family, but the outside world can be cruel, as we know today. And so my outlets were of athletics and music. And so I saw the vision of being a champion. How can you put your best foot forward? Regardless if we're an artist, a musician, someone who's good in math, hit me up because I need help with that, as well as somebody who's a relationship person who really knows how to have interpersonal relationships. We have that champion within. Putting our best foot forward, and the only one challenging ourselves is our reflection. So as I was on this journey, I realized a lot of individuals have self-doubt. We have limiting beliefs. We have questions and concerns. And we just have to take a moment and unleash the champion. Ask questions, be vulnerable, be bold, because your areas of strength may be someone's areas of improvement. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I spotlight and highlight individuals on my podcast and find those individuals who have the champion within, but have yet to share it. And my podcast helps them do that.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I'm so encouraged by just this conversation that we're having right now. So, yeah, like you mentioned a few things there. Now, a lot of people who may think about starting a podcast, they'd be like, "Oh, well, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to give. Who am I?" Type of like imposter syndrome type of thing. And you're also a coach. So, in your experience, have you dealt with any coaching with anybody else? Not to be, I don't want you to be specific, but I'm sure that you have dealt with, worked with people, and you have encountered people who have these self-limiting beliefs. Who am I? Oh, I can't start a podcast. Oh, I can't write a book. I can't do this. What advice do you have for people who may have maybe had a little idea of starting a podcast, but then talk themselves out of it? What advice do you have for people like that?
Chris, that's an amazing question, because when I got into the two-dimensional world, per se, globally, I realized that so many people had different aspects, and certain individuals like us, you can feel the frequency through the screen. You can feel the energy, that amazing, power that we have, that we are all interconnected. And I'm going to plug my friend here, who I do a segment with, Jonah from the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show. I always mess it up. BC, because he says BCE show, so it's easier to say that. But we were getting and talking. He's like, I just love learning about people. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to take time to feel a little bit comfortable with the uncomfortable of talking to a camera. I'm going to give you a little secret. Act like you're talking to your friend. Put a sticker out there. Put a plush toy on the other side and just have fun with it. The more you do it, the more it will be organic and comfortable. And if you don't know where to start, oh my goodness, these people have themes, they have topics. Ask people, hey, what do you enjoy about me? What do you I'm the go-to for? What, your family, your friends, what do we enjoy doing and talking about? And when you discover that is the blueprint that will help you mold the pathway of your podcast. Now, let me tell you this. Perfection is non-existent. Procrastination, do it now and procrastinate later. There's always a process, but what the beauty of it is, at least for me, was as I was doing my podcast more and more frequently, I was learning and growing. And again, it's that energy of your guests that will carry you through.
Yeah, this is great. So, and the energy, like what you're talking about. So one of the things that I do as well is I am a podcast producer. So I work with people to help them launch their podcast, help them to get it out there and manage their content going forward. One of the things that I have talked to so much people, one of the key things I think with podcasting is when you start, you need to make sure that your energy levels are like at 150%, right? You can't just be on the microphone thinking you're going to start a podcast and you're going to sound like this. And, people are going to want to listen to you as but you got to be excited about what you're bringing so that whoever else is listening to you can feel your excitement and feed off of that excitement. So those energy levels are so important, especially for podcasters, because when you're having a podcast, I know that there are video podcasts, but for the most part, podcasts are audio. People are listening to you. And your voice is the only thing that they can actually connect to, right? The only tool that you have to use to connect to them, right? So the more excited, the more energy that you have with your voice, it's a better chances that you'll be able to connect with the people listening to your podcast. So that's just my 2 cents on that topic, since you brought up one of the other keywords that I love, energy. Energy is very important. Let me ask about your podcast. So you started in 2023 March. That's when your first episode was released. But what was the thought process like? Because we mentioned before, I just spilled my water, but it's
Wow,
okay.
good thing it's only water.
Yeah, yeah. What was the process like? What was the process like when you were thinking about starting your podcast? Because you could have wrote a book, you have a website already, you could have started a YouTube channel and a vlog. What was that thought process like, where you said, you know what, a podcast is the way to go for me?
Well, it's a great question because actually it was a stepping stone for me. And what do I mean by that is, I'm an alumna of Les Brown and his academy. And so I dedicated myself and applied all of his teachings and challenged myself for 3 consecutive years to do videos and upload them every single day. And once I got familiar and comfortable and really felt a flow, an ebb and flow in my presentation, my character, my body language, my tonality, and so forth. And then I did the book and then I did the website and started coaching. I was like, well, I need to do more, a little bit more for those who aren't, no disrespect, glued to their phones. There's a lot of workers out there in the commute system that, they can play the playlists from the old school days, but they kind of want to get educated or have that, as you mentioned, impact and energy on their way to work or on their way home from work, or if they're in a situation where they just kind of want to quiet the noise and stay focused on a topic. So what I decided to do was I was like, okay, after speaking to my friend Jonah, I was just like, well, what do people want? What do they really look for? And what I discovered with my business, Press Play, Plan Life According to You, LLC, I decided that everybody talks about things, but how many people talk about themselves in a positive light? Now, I don't mean bragging. I don't mean celebrating. I don't mean egotistical or narcissist. I'm talking about celebrating their wins, sharing their woes, reminding people it's possible because they were possible. And so that's what really spearheaded. I need to get into the digital audible world. Now, my podcast is both visual and audible, but at the same token, you need that. I know nobody's interactive, but you can smile when you hear this. How many times have you heard something from a family member or friend giving you encouragement, giving you empowerment, or telling you to do something? You're like, yeah, in one ear, out the other. But somebody comes on the radio, right? Or through the device that you're listening and say, hey, you know what? Forget it. Do you. What do you want to do? Are you okay today? Did you think about this? Have you explored this? And really tap into that psyche component of, hey, when you listen to my podcast, I'm empowering, I'm asking you, and I'm sharing and being transparent, authentic, and acting with integrity and vulnerable. And I think that's the connection that has helped me propel, just like Les Brown has propelled that sense of relativity.
Yep.
This sense of, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. As well as the sense of, hey, I'm going to make you laugh, but I'm also going to make you cry. I'm going to be human with you, not being a dictator, not being a lecturer. I'm going to share from experience and then ask questions for engagement to empower you within.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. You just basically gave like a Cole's Note version of how podcasters should be. But the one key thing that you mentioned is not to lecture or be a dictator, but to invite people in through your authenticity in your podcast, because that is the reason why people will actually stick around and listen to your podcast.
Right.
There are other podcasters out there, and it's okay to kind of like have like famous podcasters and trying to be like them type of thing. Right. There's only one me, there's only one you, and you are the best at being you. So when you can let your true authentic self shine through your podcast, that's when you will really connect with people. You'll find loyal listeners who stick around for a long time. And you can actually, like I said before, make impact in people's lives when you can actually be your true and authentic self. So let me ask, what was the best episode that you've ever done? So maybe you can let us know.
Yeah, let me just look through my notes, ladies and gentlemen. I rarely do this. But I probably believe one of the best ones was a woman who I walked her journey with and was very connected one from the first moment I met her because I kind of call her the Louisiana beauty. Her name is Miss Shawana Monique Gilroy.
Okay.
And we did a podcast together and we were just sharing our experiences and our journeys together. And Chris, like I said, it's all about the impact. It's all about the energy. It's all about the authentic connection. And if you put that on your ears or on the speaker system, you think we were just right next to each other having a cup of coffee. We never met in person, but we laughed. We got emotional. There was ebbs and flow throughout the podcast. It was very energetic, to say the least, because it was just sharing all the components that you want from a podcast. The emotional journey that she walked us on with her experience of us to get working together. The experience of her fears, her successes. It just embodied and encapsulated all of the facets that you want to gain as a podcast host, as well as a podcast guest. And that's something to be mindful of. And what I usually do when I'm selecting my guests and working with them, is going through the process of, how can this be a symbiotic win-win situation? Not so much win as in what's in it for me, but giving that exposure, giving that broader audience a sense of self and understanding that we can work together collectively and we can agree to disagree in a civil manner and still have fun.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the things that I noticed about I guess you could call it the podcasting community since starting this podcast is when you can connect with someone on your podcast, you actually, there's like, okay, you can come on my podcast and we'll talk about this and we'll work on something with you. But, let's reciprocate that. Let me go on your podcast and let's all work together. We all have the same goal of creating content out there that can help people and make an impact. Let's work together. And what I have found was I've had this podcast for just over a year now. What I have found is that it's so wonderful to actually connect with other podcasters around the world and actually work together and actually just make impact and help release content that can change the lives of people. And it's just such a wonderful feeling to know that me here, and this is partly because of technology, right? I'm here sitting in, Canada. I could talk to someone who was in South Korea or in Madagascar, right?
Right.
People, places around the world, and we can get together using technology and create something that can actually go out to the world and touch many lives. So this is like, that's what I really love about podcasting. Let me ask, how is the balance between podcasting and your other areas of your life? How do you balance or manage your time so that you can get time to podcast and still keep up with the other commitments that you have in your life?
Excellent question. It's very key. It's a running joke around here amongst family and friends that I have a type AAA personality, if you will. And I'm a certified professional organizer as well as business manager. So time is of the essence. Time cannot be wasted, replaced, or should never be taken for granted. Your presence is the other's gift. And so when we look at balance, we have to understand that there are many different facets behind the scenes aside from the one-on-one visual or audible engagement between the podcast and the host. There's making sure you have the right promotional materials, the right equipment, making sure that, in my case, the tech gremlins are on my side that day, that everything is working cohesively. But again, it's also one of the things as humans we have to adopt and adapt is patience. We can plan everything. Like I said, plan life according to you, but we have to be understanding and mindful and flexible about the shift changes. And you can do a podcast, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a full-time worker, a part-time worker, an entrepreneur. And I speak to people over in Asia and Africa. They're doing podcasts at the age of 10. So, there's no limit and there's no bias to when you start, wherever you're from.
Mhm.
It's just the start that stops us, as they say all the time. When you look at time management, and I also coach this too, but I'll give you a nugget today because
Okay.
I like you guys. What you could do is
Ready to launch your podcast the right way? If you ever dreamed about starting your own podcast but don't know where to begin, this is your moment. I've been podcasting for years and helping others to do the same. Now I'm bringing everything that I've learned into a brand new live 6-week podcasting class. Each week I'll walk you through the exact steps to go from idea to launch. Even if you're on a tight budget or a short time frame, you'll get no fluff, no overwhelm, just a clear roadmap to building a podcast that actually lasts. This is a live, hands-on group class, which means that you'll be able to ask me questions, get feedback, and build your show with real support from me. And you will be transformed into a podcaster by the time we finish. And because I want to keep it intimate and impactful, the spots are very limited. So if you're serious about starting your podcast and want to do it right, join the waitlist through the link in the description, and you'll be one of the first to know when the course opens. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. So let's turn that podcast dream into a reality.
if you are doing something that's priority financial or familial or for yourself, make sure you're giving 100% into the podcast industry as well. Because what happens is society has taught us that multitasking is the way. Do a million things. But let me ask you this. Would you want less than 100% quality of food when you're going to a restaurant?
Huh.
Would you want less than 100% quality when you're going to the doctor? So time is important and it can be managed. If you are able to create a schedule, now I'm not talking a schedule like I do, where it's every 15 minutes to 30 increment time slots of how I'm utilizing your time. But my challenge for everyone today, look at what you're doing after your priority tasks, family, work, with your fur babies, with your children, with your friends. What are the hours that you're spending? Because shift your mindset. Are you being busy or are you being productive? And if you can eliminate screen time, TV time, and doing the vices of the world, and really put that into an hour or compilation of several hours or minutes, my friends, you have the time to start a podcast.
Yeah. You know what? That right there, I'm going to use that as part of the promotion for this episode. That is a key takeaway right there. Because
Thanks.
I don't think a lot of people really realize how much time they are actually wasting. Just maybe scrolling social media or just on, watching television, and then they wonder why in their life they don't accomplish anything, right? Yes, those big priorities, family, work, those things are important. But if you look at it, there's a lot of time that you still have in your day, right? That if you can be very efficient with your time, you can actually start a podcast and be very good at it. But you just need to be organized and be disciplined enough to say, okay, you know what? I've spent 30 minutes scrolling Instagram. That's enough, or I've spent
timer on.
Put a timer on, exactly. And actually, there's actually tools on your cell phone that, will tell you, hey, the time for this application is exceeded your limit, right? So it's time for you to get off of it now, right? It's just a matter of people being diligent and disciplined with their time so that they can actually accomplish something, right? So that's wonderful, wonderful insight. So let's talk about maybe your setup that you use now for your podcast. So you do have a video podcast. So maybe like some of the tools that you use. So like microphone, camera, what kind of hosting that you use, just to help people who are just getting started, to give them a good frame of reference when they're picking the tools and the things that they need to start their podcast.
Excellent question. Yeah, so I'm an organic girl because I believe if I understand and master it organically, then I know what quality and deliverables are available if I decide to hire someone professionally to do it. And that's a big key too, because people are like, oh my gosh, I don't have the finances for it. Ladies and gentlemen, with today's technology, you can use your phone. You can use a hanger as a tripod. I've done that. I'll be honest with you. You can use your headset. As you can see, I'm kind of subtly, hiding it that's just a personal preference. I know a lot of people have the mics in camera, but when I first started, I used the laptop. I used a headset, a wireless headphones, old school, and I was using Zoom because everybody around the world uses Zoom, and it actually has the capability to record, to save to your computer, as well as has a timestamp depending on what platform. So let me break it down in three categories for those for the audience. If you're a newbie and you want to start organically, start that way. Throw on the headset, get familiar with your devices, and practice. So the key components in podcasting is audible, which is your sound, visible, which is your camera, and lighting. Now, you can see sometimes right now, unfortunately, I'm still in the ironing out the kinks, even years later, sometimes you'll see the camera fluctuate. So right now I'm using a DSLR camera for my visual. Then, as you can see here, I have wired headphones that go in the ear. Some people have the overhead. Some people have the lav mics. I've used all kinds. This is just right now the most accessible for me today. Lighting, you can either people have a ring light or a spotlight that is shining on them. What you want to be mindful is that you're visible with your face and you are able to I have a halo light to differentiate from me from the background, because I can see the background is black and my hair is dark brown. So you want to be mindful. Now, those aren't as much prominent if you're doing an audible podcast. So the key component for audible podcast is making sure you have the proper mic to diffuse the letters that may be prominent for those ASMR out there. Sorry, but for those P's, those sounds, so you're not like whistling to them and you're like twisting because you think somebody's whispering in your ear. So those would be the basic fundamentals organically. I know some people that I've connected with and collaborated with, they use StreamYard. That's another organic platform that you can use. There has been Podbeam, and I think there was another one with Riverside, maybe?
Yes.
I'm not sure of that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So those are the ones that I've been familiar with. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, test them out. There are free opportunities available if you are looking for something organic. Your phone, your laptop, and just make sure if it's audible, the really prominent factor is your mic. If it's audible and visible, it's your mic, your camera, as well as we've all known, internet stability.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that I learned, so you talked about using your cell phone to record your podcast. One of a big aha moment to me was last season of my podcast. I had an interview with someone by the name of Dawn Wecker. She has a podcast called Dawnversations, and she's had more than 300 and something episodes in the bank out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It wasn't until recently that she actually just got like a condenser or a dynamic microphone to record her podcast. But before that, she was only using her cell phone in her closet. And myself, being the podcast producer that I am, I listened to her past episodes and I couldn't tell the difference.
Right.
So if people are out there are thinking that, I need to have like the best mic or this or that, or I need to soundproof my room and stuff like that before I start a podcast, you don't. You just need to start and practice good technique, right? Like I said, she started in her closet. Right. The closet is perfect. It's a small space. It has clothes in there. It diffuses the sound, so there's not a lot of echo. And she was able to start her podcast, because I think a lot of people don't start because they want everything to be perfect. But it's never going to be perfect. And like you said, with regards to your light and your setup, you learn as you go, right? You might figure out that you might use the lapel mic for a few episodes and realize, you know what? I like this better, or the wired headphones, I like that better. You just learn as you go. But the important thing is that you start and that you keep going and keep learning, right? So
Yeah.
myself, I used to use wireless headphones, but one thing that I realized was that the wireless headphones had some latency with the video. So if you were talking to me, I would see your lips move on the video, but I would hear it maybe like few milliseconds after, and it was
Delay, right?
there's a little bit of delay, and it would throw me off. So I said, you know what? Let me just use a wired headphones, and I got my in-ears right now that I'm using
Yeah.
that's connected wired to the laptop. So I mean, like we're saying, just start, learn as you go, and just continue to move forward and adjust. Right? You don't have to
Yeah.
spend a lot of money. Use what you have and just move forward. And as you make a little money from your podcast, hopefully, you could put some back into your podcast and get one of those nice, what do you call it? Shure SMB microphones or whatever they're called. The nice one that everybody
Yeah.
wants, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it's really about, what people love that I know with my audience and my followers is they love the process because they have the evolution. You saw my first videos that I did like way back when. You're like, oh my gosh, what? It sounds like she's in a tunnel and her audio is not in alignment with her video and everything. But I still put it out there.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the ability and accessibility and authenticity about me that I want to say, hey, look, I started from there. And look at where it's progression. There's constant acts towards progression. There's no such thing as perfection.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I always do. I always go back and listen to the first episode for everyone that I speak to.
Yeah.
I listen to the first episode and I listen to the last episode and I see the growth. And yes, you're right. There was a lot of growth in your podcast from the first episode to the last one. So that's great. Now, what types of challenges have you overcome with your podcast or that you are overcoming right now? What are some of the challenges that you've seen?
I would say number one, when you are starting a podcast, be mindful and be patient, because if you do international or even across the United States, be mindful of people's time, because things are going to happen, family interruptions, other conditions are going to life is just going to happen. And so kind of like I wouldn't say a rule of thumb because it's really not a rule, but just something to keep in mind is always give yourself wiggle room for, like most podcasters say, about an hour, because a show may be 30, 45 minutes, but you want to make sure everything's, working and so forth. And so I said, one of the challenges is technology. You could be their friend or their foe. I'm still working on being their friend, but it happens. The second thing I believe is, as you mentioned before, Chris, discipline. Making sure you stay on tact with the uploads, the promotional materials, the scheduling, and connecting with your guests and so forth. I'm on break right now from my podcast. It'll go back up. I'm anticipating, as we're looking mid-March, if not April, to start up again. And that's another thing. Don't feel pressured. You have to do it immediately.
Yeah.
It's a growing process. Part of the production process is really saying, am I going to do this weekly, bi-weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly? And that's part of the developing stages, is what you want to be mindful of. Rewinding on to this segment is time management.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can batch, beauty of technology, you can batch your episodes and schedule them, or you could do them one by one. It's really to each his own choice based on flexibility and availability, but you want to be congruent with it. Right. And you want to also be mindful of the pace that you are uploading. And that's also on the back end office. What is the time that your listeners are following? What are the prime times in your area, in your regions that are cohesive, that you can get traction and audience? So those would be I'd say the two things are, number one, discipline, consistency, and dedication. That would be, making sure you're following suit in uploading the videos. Number two, technology. Just being patient that there's going to be hiccups. It happens to everyone, and not to give up and not to have that be a reason for not even starting.
Yeah. And just as you say, technology, I remembered a situation that I had last year where I was interviewing someone just like this, and my computer just shut off and decided to run an update. So,
Oh, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned a really, really valuable lesson at that time, because I would have lost everything from that recording. And like this episode, like you have dropped so much insight on us. That episode that I had where my computer shut off, the person I was dealing with, his name is Kurt Sasso. You can go back and listen to the episode from last year. It cut off, and he was dropping some solid gold on us about podcasting. But the thing is, on his side, he was actually recording as well. So I was able to actually keep the entire episode, even when my computer shut off, and I kept it in the episode because it was a learning opportunity, not only for me, but for everybody else listening as well. Make sure you have backups and things like that when you're going to
Backup to backup in case
backups
you
to
get backed
backup.
up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. All right. So listen, we're just about to wrap up now. Now, I usually end all of my episodes like this. Is there anything that I may have forgotten to ask you, or one final key takeaway that you want to share with all of the people out there listening?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are human beings. Things happen. But remember 3 things that are a takeaway of being a podcaster, a visible public figure, and in the eyes of the world. Number 1, if podcasting is your passion, follow your heart, not the herd nor the hurt. Number 2, anything you've gone through in life, through life's adversities, can help you create your identity. Someone out there needs to hear your story, your situation, or just wants some connection. We live in a 2-dimensional world, unfortunately. But the beauty of it is I can talk to Chris like he's sitting in my living room and have a good time. Number 3, podcasting is a method of communication. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be smooth running. There are going to be hiccups. Regardless, just stay on course. Because if you stay on course, that's when the magic is happening. And that's when you unleash the champion within.
Wonderful.
Yes. And I just want to share with everyone, if you don't know a theme, if you don't know if I have a story, I also base it on my book, Victim to Victorious, who Les Brown has done the forward. I have an episode series coming of an anthology that I did with Les Brown and other 14 authors. You have something. If you got bullied in school, if you won a championship in your athletics, if you got achievement awards academically, that's where you start. Do with what you know, then you'll be able to grow.
Wonderful. Ooh. I love that.
Absolutely. And for Chris's audience and those on the playback, connect with me and put I Made a Podcast, and I'll help you with more golden nuggets to help you with improving your podcast, whether you're just getting started, established, or moving forward. The day you stop learning is the day you stop growing.
Andrea, this was a wonderful conversation. So listen, everybody out there listening, I've put links for Andrea's podcast in the descriptions, Unleashing the Champion Within. And oh man, I'm so encouraged right now. I feel like I can run a marathon outside in the freezing cold.
There you go. There you go.
Andrea, thank you so much for being on I Made a Podcast. This was a blast. You absolutely knocked it out the park. Thank you so much for being on I Made a Podcast. This was awesome. Thank you.